Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 23rd, 2026 City of Gardner Planning Commission meeting. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will start with a roll call. To my right.
Commissioner Landsberg, present.
Commissioner Vonderschmidt, present.
Commissioner Souza, present.
Commissioner Berg, present.
Commissioner Juniman, present.
Commissioner Olucci, present.
We have a quorum. So moving on to the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the Planning Commission for study. These items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired, an item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of the Planning Commission or the applicant. Is there anyone who would like to remove any items from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, may I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Berg, second by Commissioner Juniman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 7-0. All right. Moving into our regular agenda. Item number 1, Aspen Place Apartments preliminary plat.
Thank you. Aspen Place was originally developed in the 1950s as a military housing when New Century Air Center was the Olathe Naval Air Station. The infrastructure is predominantly original, and as part of the plan to improve the infrastructure that supports Aspen Place, the property is required to be platted. All this time, it has not been platted property. And that platting allows for the dedication of right-of-way as well as easements for public utilities. The streets will be public. They will be reconstructed and be public streets, and the water system, which is currently water is provided by New Century, and New Century is provided their water by the city of Gardner. We will be taking over the water mains as well when they are reconstructed. So before you this evening is the preliminary plat for Aspen Place. You can see the right-of-way for Aspen Street and Beach, as well as the easements for the public water mains. Within the staff report, there is an explanation regarding several exceptions that were granted by the city engineer, and that is per our municipal code. They were able to grant exceptions related to the on-street parking and sidewalks. Based on the provision of on-street parking, you could see that some of the right-of-way does jog around because the on-street parking will be owned and maintained by the property owner, not the city. With that, I would forward to our recommendation and say that staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat with the 3 conditions outlined on the staff report. The applicant has submitted their final plat for consideration, and we anticipate that coming back to you next month. The applicant's engineer and staff have been communicating regarding those public improvements and is here if you have any questions. With that, I'll conclude.
Is the applicant present?
I am Lance Scott, CFS Engineers, 1421 East 104th Street in Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah, we agree with staff recommendations and would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? There's no other presentation?
No,
No.
staff covered.
If there are any questions for staff?
I think we're just been here so long that we're, nothing's really changing, we're just improving it, so. And bringing it into the city.
It's been in the city,
Well,
but
it's
the.
been in the city, but the infrastructure was private.
Correct.
So, as far as the city has the ability to cover the new streets. I have nothing further.
If there's nothing further, may I get a motion?
I'll make the motion. I move that the planning commission approve the preliminary plat with the following conditions, number 1 through 3.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Lucci, seconded by Commissioner Byrd. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. All right. Looking at item number 2, which is GEHS Trails Building Expansion, the site plan. Does staff have a presentation?
Do you want to
Or
do the
applicant first?
applicant or staff first?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is David Riley. I'm with MKEC Engineering, speaking on behalf of the school district for this project, and be here to answer any questions after staff has gone and taken the chance to go through the project.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jesse Hunter, planner with the city. So the applicant is requesting approval of a site plan for an expansion of the existing Trails building located on the east portion of the high school property. The main building is located to the west of the affected portion of the site, and there are residential houses to the east. The site plan layout shows the 9,300 square foot addition being added to the north end of the existing building, and it extends at an angle to the northeast. It will use the existing access from Buckeye and Sunset Street intersection, which then extends over to the west. The detention to the north is being adjusted to make room for the addition. There's an existing stormwater line connection to the basin from the existing parking lot, but based on the proposed location of the building expansion, it will have to be moved. The landscaping plan shows a buffer of trees and shrubs along the east side of the parking lot and shade trees in the parking lot islands. The entry areas have been enhanced with planting beds and shrubs. The parking lot count is 43 spaces total, which is more than the 22 maximum based on the square footage of the building addition, which is calculated by the square footage and then the number of classrooms. The land development code allows for parking over the maximum if there are a variety of solutions such as impervious, shared parking. In this case, the applicant is proposing a extra landscaping screening. So that is the hedgerow and then the trees that you can see on the east side along North Buckeye Street. This will help screen the parking lot from the residential houses to the east. The extra parking is being provided to reduce overflow parking that currently happens on Buckeye Street, and staff believes the proposed parking arrangement is acceptable. The building will have an appearance that is a continuation of the architectural styling on the existing Trails building and also that of the larger main high school. The facade includes brick, tan EIFS, and aluminum framed windows. The ground level mechanical equipment will be enclosed in a walled section and screened with landscaping. Staff recommends approval of the site plan with the two conditions on the screen. The first is one you've seen several times, and it ensures that the site will meet all stormwater requirements. And the second is to ensure that the lighting for the building and the parking lot has the proper cutoff fixtures so it does not adversely affect the residents to the east. And staff's available for any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? We can then,
I have, your staff rep. I'm familiar with the area. The main entrance to the trails is also delivery as well as maintenance, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, I believe so.
Okay. With this additional building, has been taken into consideration for emergency access?
Yes, there's room, there's enough maneuverability and circulation space to meet that requirement. We meet the city's requirements for aisle widths and all that to have that. And we've done turning movements to make sure things can fit through there and have access and circulation.
I know main drop-off for the school is on the north side.
Mhm.
Does that include drop-off for the trails?
They're separate, if that's what you're, I'm gonna make sure I understand what you're asking. Like there's the parent pickup drop off on the north side of the loop for the high school portion itself. This is a separate entity that would have.
I know where the building is.
Sure.
Do the buses go in there? What I'm worried about is congestion. If
Sure.
something happens, you have to get an ambulance in there, or, your SROs need backup or something like that.
Sure.
What type of delay that's going to incur?
The buses will still stay on the south side of the high school. That's disconnected from the trails portion of the site. Trails will have buses, but it's just 3 times throughout the day where they'll just do a quick drop off and pick up. But there wouldn't be any stacking for a period of time. But there will be deliveries and drop offs and that such for that. But it wouldn't be this. They're separated, I guess. For the buses are on the south side of the building, but to the west. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
any other questions or discussion?
Just curious, so what they're gonna be using that new portion of the high school for?
It's part of the Trails program. They're just expanding it and getting more space for their program. And we do have the school district here to speak to that if they want to.
Good evening, Jody Marshall, 14501 Oak Valley, Gardner. I'm an assistant superintendent for the school district. Yeah, the Trails program is our adult transition program for students that have special needs, so the 18 to 21-year-old program. We're going to get considerably more students in the next couple of years, go from about 10 to 20. So the expansion will allow us to better address their needs and prepare them for independent living. And then there are also going to be 2 classrooms for our alt ed students. Those are students that are primarily don't find the regular high school the right setting for them, and so we have that credit recovery program. It's currently located out by Nike. We're going to bring that program back and kind of put it more on campus to facilitate some other ways to support those students. That program is set up to handle about 20 to 30 students. They are not there at the same time. They come and go, and when they get enough credits, they're out of the program, so that's a pretty fluid kind of situation. So to your question, we don't anticipate any additional congestion there really to speak of. And the trail students, going back to them, as David was saying, they're dropped off in the smaller buses, and they come in, and there's a loop in the parking lot which will allow them to be dropped off, and those buses will come and go pretty quickly and efficiently.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Any final questions? Discussion? May I have a motion?
I'll do the motion. That the planning commission approve the site plan for the Gardner Edgerton High School Trails Building expansion subject to the following conditions. Conditions number 1 and 2.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Lucci. Second, I believe that was by Juniman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. Moving on to item number 3 on the regular agenda, 642 East Bluebird Street, conditional use permit, short-term rental. I myself am going to recuse my vote and attendance here for this particular item, but I will turn it over to Commissioner Byrd to carry out this item.
Item number 3 is conditional use permit at 642 East Bluebird Street. There will be a public hearing required for this. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Yeah, my name is Isaac Karimi, and I'm the homeowner. I'd be happy to take any questions about it.
Okay.
You want to explain what's a short-term rental, why?
So, what I'm trying to do is do a long-term rental for furnished finding, and then in between the contracts, if I don't have somebody, that's why I'm seeking a short-term rental permit for Airbnb.
So basically you want to run an Airbnb?
In between the tenants, not like full-time, but in between the tenants. Yes.
To maintain cash flow?
Yes, to maintain cash flow, just in case, yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening. So the applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit for a short-term rental of a detached single-family house in the Genesis Creek Estates subdivision. This is the first application we have received for a short-term rental since the regulations related to them were adopted in 2016. The applicant provided a narrative explaining that the property will be primarily used to provide furnished housing for professionals such as traveling nurses, and when it's not occupied for these longer tenancy situations, it will be used as a short-term rental, as Isaac just explained. The house is a detached house suburban lot type and is 70 feet wide and 9,450 square feet in size, which is similar to the rest of the neighborhood. The house has a 2-car garage and the rear yard is fenced, which serves to delineate the property boundaries. Short-term rentals are defined in the Land Development Code as dwellings that are rented for less than 30 consecutive days, and they require a conditional use permit to be approved. There are 5 specific standards applicable to short-term rentals, which are included as condition 2 of the staff recommendation, just to make sure they will be followed. One of these is to post the occupancy limit, which is 7 people for this house. And the 5th standard specifically prohibits the property from being used to solely host parties and requires it to be used as a dwelling unit. So the impact to the area in regard to traffic generation and noise will generally be similar to that of a single-family house. This will still be highly dependent, though, on the individual tenants and duration of stay. Staff therefore recommends the approval expire at the end of 2027 with an administrative review at the end of this year to see if there were any complaints and to ensure the 5 standards and any other conditions are being met. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit with 3 conditions. The first is the expiration. The second is those 5 standards that the code requires, just reiterated to make sure it's in one list of all the requirements. And then third recommended condition is that the applicant gain approval from the HOA. While the city is not the enforcer of HOA covenants and restrictions, staff believes this condition will help prevent potential issues that could arise after the rentals occur. I want to emphasize that these are recommended conditions and they can be added to or removed. This is the first conditional use permit application for a short-term rental So there aren't really any previous cases in the city to follow. Also, the Planning Commission is the recommending body for this conditional use permit, and then the governing body would be the final decision-making body. And staff's available for any questions.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for the staff or the applicant?
I have a question. So what's the main difference between a regular rental and a short-term rental? Why this specific one requires a permit?
So according to the definition of a short-term rental, if it's less than 30 consecutive days, it requires a conditional use permit. So an Airbnb or VRBO, it requires the conditional use permit, which is why it has to go through this process. If it were rented for 60 days, no permit is required.
Thank you.
What type of, what kind of legal backing does he have? Say he has an issue, even though it's short term. I know with most evictions, that could take up to 6 months. What does he have, or does the city have, legally that can help them if there's an issue, you know, where you get the complaints, you get, and it's, you know, one specific group of people or person that's been there, you can't just walk in and kick them out, as far as I know by law.
Is this about the Airbnb portion of it?
Yes.
So, at least to my knowledge, when you are signing up to rent a home through Airbnb, there is like so many disclosures that you have to consent to, and it kind of goes into that of if there's a tenancy issue. Well, it's not even a tenancy because it's short term, so it would not be treated the same as like a residential home. It's more of a commercial transaction, if that makes sense. It's like a hotel, you know. It's whatever process you would go through if someone's at a Holiday Inn and they need to kick you out. It's easier to do that with an Airbnb than it is to an apartment complex or someone living in that scenario. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I came up a little prematurely, possibly.
All right, so you're part of the public one?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I didn't know if you wanted to ask a question.
No, I'll save myself the question maybe until after the public hearing.
Okay. So this item requires a public hearing. We'll now open the public hearing. If anyone in the audience would like to speak regarding this item, if you have not already done so, please write your name and address on the sign-in sheet at the back of the room. And when you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Individual speakers will have 3 minutes. The speaker representing a group will be allotted 7 minutes. Please address your comments and any questions to the Planning Commission. Any questions raised by those speaking will be addressed at the conclusion of the public hearing.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thanks for clarifying some of the questions. I had some of those myself. My name is John Martini. I am at 867 North Cedar. I'm also the president of Genesis Creek HOA. I did receive a couple of emails from the homeowner, and we have reviewed our covenants as far as long-term rentals and short-term rentals, and thanks again for the clarification on what the city requires. I'm going to quickly read 2 quick paragraphs from the Genesis Creek Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions, recorded in 2003, December 10, 2003, on book 2003112, page 003533. Also posted on the genesiscreek.com website under resident information. Article 8, use and occupancy restrictions, residential use, 8.1. Paragraph A says each lot may be used only for residential purposes and for no other use or purpose. No business, commercial building may be erected on any lot, and no business or commercial enterprise or other residential, non-residential use may be conducted on any lot. Without limiting the foregoing, no building or structure intended for or adapted to commercial, business, or professional purposes, nor any apartment house, duplex, double house, lodging house, rooming house, group home, dormitory, church, school, hospital, sanitarium, guest house, servants' quarters, or multiple family dwellings shall be erected, placed, permitted or maintained on any lot. Nothing in this paragraph shall prohibit an owner's use of its residence for quiet, inoffensive activities such as tutoring or giving art or music lessons, or for a home office, so as long such activities do not violate the other restrictions set forth in the declaration and do not materially increase the number of cars parked on the street or interfere with any adjoining owner's use of their lots. Now, I'm going to go to, I'm going to skip paragraph B, simply because it talks about related and unrelated versus, I think, more so in the, I'm sorry, actually, I'll go ahead and read it because it looks like these are both together. Because I think B relates to a long-term rental, as in we have a good handful of them in the neighborhood of homeowners that have rented out to other family members or other people through different third-party management agencies to, for a year, 2 years, 6 months, et cetera, or rent to own. In paragraph B, it says each residence may be occupied by only one family consisting of persons related by blood, adoption or marriage, or no more than 2 unrelated persons living and cooking together or in the same residence as a single housekeeping unit, provided each residence may be occupied by only one family consisting of persons related by blood, adoption, or marriage, or no more than 2 unrelated persons living and cooking together or in the same residence as a single housekeeping unit, provided, however, that nothing contained herein shall prevent occasional temporary occupancy by guests of the family or by occupancy by full-time domestic servants or medical assistants employed by the family, and occupancy by full-time domestic servants. And further provided, nothing contained herein shall prevent the owner of a residence from renting a residence as long as the residence is occupied by only one family as set out in this paragraph. Now, I know the times have changed. I don't think we knew what short-term rental was in 2003. So I read both paragraphs to show that, we are fully in favor and allow homeowners in the neighborhood to rent their home as long as they follow those guidelines. I feel like in my opinion, without getting a legal counsel involved or going through the district court, I feel like those examples that are listed in the covenant, such as, the group home, dormitory, church, school, hospital, sanitarium, guest house, servant's house, multifamily dwelling, I think that falls under restricting the short-term use. Thank you, and any questions before I step down?
I'll go over some stuff too, by
Okay.
the way. So,
Sure. The last part you read.
Yes.
There was no specific time frame given for rental.
Correct. You're welcome.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jared Ingalls. I live at 630 East Meadowlark Place in Genesis Creek Estates. The thing that I would have to worry about is, there is a lot of little kids in our neighborhood, and with an Airbnb, you don't have the choice of basically running a background check on that person that's going to rent that place for a day, 2 days, 3 days. So we don't know what kind of person that's going to be in our neighborhood. So I would take that under advisement as well. I hope that nothing would come of that, but people are people, and they could come in and want to do a short-term rental for a couple, 2 or 3 days, do something wrong in our neighborhood, and we wouldn't have any discretion about that. So, any questions?
Thanks.
I was gonna say the exact same thing as him. So
Okay.
I live at 618 East Bluebird.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this matter?
okay, I'll come in then, once you do your closure of the public hearing.
Okay. Seeing no one else approaching the podium, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion to close public hearing from Commissioner Ginneman. Seconded. Not your name? Lucci. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the public hearing is closed.
Okay, so I'll turn your attention to your review criteria for a conditional use permit, 17.03.050. Those are kind of the things that you consider when you were hearing these types of applications. The tricky thing is any HOA conditions or anything in their actual covenants are not for you to consider. That is a private entity and that's their own rules. And if anything legal came up, that would be in between the private resident and the HOA. Those are the two people who would have to discuss that. The way that relates to maybe the review criteria is if those public concerns fall under any of the review, so like compatibility with area in terms of operating characteristics or traffic patterns, that kind of stuff, that's where you can consider what you just heard. But I don't want anyone to feel like they have to be like, well, the covenant and restriction says this, and so blah, blah, blah. So that's my warning before the discussion starts, if anyone has questions.
So my question on that is, so if there is a HOA concern, then that's between the HOA and the homeowner, regardless of us granting a conditional use permit. Is that correct?
Right, so if you guys decide to grant it and they take issue with it, that's between those two and not the city. Or if you choose not to grant it, that can't be because it violates a certain section of the covenants of the HOA. That has to be because it doesn't fit the review criteria, or it's something that has to do with our code, if that makes sense. However, those concerns that citizens have talked about may fall under the review criteria anyway. So that's what you guys are here for.
And just to be clear, does the conditional use permit overrule the HOA or in any way counteract it?
They're two separate things. So because it's an HOA is a private entity, if the city does grant something or that someone is allowed to do something that conflicts with a covenant, that has to be enforced only by the HOA. So the city can't step in and be like, whoops. So that's a separate issue. However, that's kind of why HOAs like to come in and give public opinion, is because they can bring attention to this conflicts with the values of our community and that kind of stuff. And then that kind of falls under the review criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But your staff recommendation includes a conditional requirement for the HOA to provide, or for the applicant to provide a written statement from the HOA approving that use.
So we put that in there because of this exact issue. It would help if we were provided, the city was provided something that says we kind of discussed this as private entities and we came to a conclusion, and then that makes the city feel better about, okay, great, we can go ahead and do this. So we kind of put that there as a condition. You don't have to have it in there with that condition, but the thought behind it was, if this is something that the private entities can agree upon, then it bodes well for the city's process it has to go through, rather than this is a contentious matter and we're going to grant it anyway, and then it comes back and blah, blah, blah. So that's a condition that we tried to put in there just to make sure that thoughts are aligned between the applicant and the HOA, if that can happen.
Is the property currently being leased? Are you renting out currently, or no? No. So I have concerns about the noise levels. The timing of the application is, there's a large event taking place here shortly, and there's an opportunity to, there's a large event taking place in the broader Kansas City area, and there's going to be increased demand for properties. So, will those people abide, but would those tenants abide by those standards? Would there be potential noise issues with celebrations?
Yeah, we're going to enforce them because even if you rent through Airbnb, you have to consent to that. There's no noise. No, you can put no pets. You can. There's so many things you can be able to do that, and I can be able to enforce it before it even gets to the HOA.
And how would your neighbors, would they contact you directly as the landowner if there was, or as the property owner if there was an issue, or
Yes.
they just go to the police right away?
No, they would contact me directly.
I would say ideally they would contact
Yeah.
the owner because he could rectify it quickly. It may go through code enforcement too. It depends on the person. And code enforcement does take some time. That is one challenge, and we were thinking about when by the time code enforcement could react to the specific situation, that tenant could be gone.
Well, the thing is, the first person, somebody has a complaint with noise, issues with traffic, the first call is gonna be made to the police department. And unless they know where this gentleman is, and how to get a hold of him, you know, they have no way to really, except, you know, you guys need to shut it down or whatnot. And you know, don't take me wrong. Piece of paper is just that, it's a piece of paper. You know, you could have as many conditions on it as you want, but there's no way that says that this person that's coming in to rent it for 2 days, because of the events that are going on around, or 3 days, are gonna follow that, because what do they care? It's not their place, they're leaving anyways, and if they have to leave a little bit early, you know, so those are my concerns. It's just, there's no way to really control it, and unless you're gonna stay there with them the entire time they're there, you're not gonna do that, you know?
Yeah.
So, that's just the point I wanted to make, so.
Okay. Other commissioner discussion?
I guess I just kind of concerned maybe just like with the character of the neighborhood. I don't really necessarily see that neighborhood as like a Airbnb like neighborhood to me. It doesn't, you know, it's a nice neighborhood, you know, in my opinion. Not saying you can't have Airbnbs in nice neighborhoods, but like it just doesn't seem like it really fits that character to me.
The question that I have for you, sir, is do you already have the long-term tenants lined up?
Yeah, usually what I was planning to do is have them lease it, and then I don't at the moment. I don't have any long-term
Okay.
tenant. I'm just trying to set the things on track just in case it gets to that. But I've had Airbnb before, and I've never had any problem. And there's so many checks and balances that you can do as a host. So I can be able to approve I can set it up where I can approve everybody who is coming to rent, and I can be able to just rent it to families that single family units. So I can be able to interact with the people who are renting before they even before they rent it.
Okay. I think that I echo the same concerns, even though this says homes should not be rented for the sole purpose of hosting parties or special events. I can see where that would be, you bring in family members for a graduation or a wedding or something, and hey, let's all get together at the Airbnb. And it turns into something it wasn't intended to turn into, like it or not. Doesn't mean it would be outside of the wishes of the HOA. It could still be a very peaceful, very calm party. But I don't know that you could control it that stringently. That would be the concern that I would have.
of seem like we're kind of on the same page, I guess, or are we ready for a motion, do you think? Or?
Okay. Is there a motion on this?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Planning Commission recommends denial of the conditional use permit for a short-term rental at 642 East Bluebird Street.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Ginneman to deny, seconded by Commissioner Vonderschmidt. All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, this motion, the conditional use permit is denied.
Goes to the city council. It goes to the city council.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
This actually will go to city council on the 20th.
Okay.
And they will either accept your recommendation or they may modify the recommendation and could change conditions. So this is not the final action.
Okay, thank you. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that does conclude the regular agenda for tonight's meeting. Looks like we do have some discussion items. Staff?
Staff has been tracking some information, statistics, for example, and we wanted to share that with you. And this presentation also recaps the work that the Planning Commission did last year in approving the various developments that you all saw. So just for a recap, in 2025, the city grew its footprint to slightly over 15 square miles when we annexed just over 172 acres. And during that time, we issued 159 new single-family permits. According to the American Community Survey, which is through the Census Bureau, their 2024 information, we have a population of just under 26,000, and the median home value is approximately $276,000. Thought that might be of interest to people, and then I've got some other statistics that show how we've grown and how our permits have grown in valuation. So from a population standpoint, you can see how we have grown over the past 30 plus years. There was a period of rapid growth starting in 1995 that went through 2010, and we also from just 2000 to 2024, we increased our population almost 175%. We went from 9,300 to 25,000. In 2025, we issued 83 certificates of occupancy for new single-family homes. And when you're looking at 2.9 persons per household, that's an additional 241 people just in the new single-family homes. Last year, we did not issue any permits for multifamily. So that's why I didn't include that. Looking at housing units and vacancy rate, you can see how our number of units have increased over time, and that's an average of about 2% per year in housing units. And the vacancy rate has decreased. In the last 6 years, it's gone down from just over 8% down to 4%. So there's less housing available, if you will, even though we're gaining more units. In the type of housing, we started making some comparisons with respect to single family, and for our purposes, single family is both detached and attached, then multifamily and mobile homes. And we compared that to the county, to the state, and the United States to give you perspective. It was interesting that 67% of the units are single-family, because we feel like we've had a lot of multifamily. We often get that comment, well, we're having too many apartments built. But our multifamily is at 16% of our entire number of housing units, which is very comparable, if you will, to the state. We have more than Johnson County and more than the United States. And then the same similar thing with mobile homes. We have more than the county, but we're very similar in terms of the state and the United States. And that obviously is from our large mobile home park, Conestoga. Tenancy, we looked at renter and owner occupied. We're very similar to the county, the state, and the United States. And we also looked at our median home value compared to those same geographic areas. Interestingly, I looked at median list prices, not home values, but list prices on Realtor.com and Zillow. I know they're very scientific, but I thought it would be interesting. The median list prices on those two sites for Gardner was $372,500 and $363,300 respectively. The Zillow website also had information about the average home value, and they showed between 2020 and first quarter of 2026 a 47% increase in home value. Probably not anything that you don't know, but I thought it might be interesting to sort of hear some of those numbers. Jesse put this map together. We thought it would be helpful to see sort of that picture, 1,000 words, whatever the saying goes. The heat map shows the density of building permits that were issued last year, and this includes single family and new, as well as remodels for commercial and industrial. And we also thought it would be interesting for you to realize that our residential valuation for those new single-family residential units was over $50 million. The commercial, obviously, what you see on the map is primarily residential because we only had 16 non-residential commercial industrial new construction and remodel permits, but that valuation was over $100 million. So jumping back to residential permits, you can see the yellow line represents the multifamily permits, and that sort of runs in waves or cycles. And then the blue line is single family. What? Yeah. Thank you. That's a good point. I don't see it on mine, so it wasn't bothering me. On the bottom of the screen or the slide, you can see the number of permits for residential, new single family, new multifamily, and alterations and additions, and all the other ones from 2020 through last year. And last year was our second highest in terms of new single-family permits. We had 159 last year. In 2023, we issued 184. But since 2020, we've always issued more than 100 single-family permits. Then looking at building valuation, the blue line is total for commercial and industrial and residential. The yellow is, again, residential, and then commercial and industrial is combined together. That valuation for commercial last year was our highest at over $100 million, and that was primarily for a few specific building permits. One would be the warehouse that's under construction at Clare and 175th. The other two related to the breaking ground and building permit issued for the new elementary school and the new Evergy substation. Those were pretty large permits. Just recapping some of the factors that go into our growth. One, obviously, is our location along I-35 and development spreading out from the downtown Kansas City. We also have several employment centers that we serve, as well as our school district, and being considered a safe community with that small town feel, whatever you want to define that as. So I thought, and part of this was for a different presentation, but I thought, again, showing the graphically where the development occurred might be of interest. The yellow dots are residential. The red dots are non-residential. And the 3 preliminary plans you all approved in this western portion of the city were Horizon Point, Four Corners Village, and Magnolia Fields. Out of those 3 preliminary plans, there were 576 attached and detached single-family lots. Attached because Magnolia Fields was duplexes. So you can see what we've got coming down the line. And then you also are aware of the several continuing final plats that you all approved last year. We didn't approve it, you did. And that was another 83 lots in Symphony Farms, 61 lots in Hilltop Ridge, and 141 in Cypress Creek. So we've got a lot of development going on. Looking at the northeast, we've got 2 multifamily townhome type developments that are going to be starting construction this year, or continuing their construction, if you will. And then obviously with all of these rooftops comes retail, which we're all excited about. We had the redevelopment of the Price Chopper. The last area is the central and southeast portion of town, primarily focusing on the I-35 corridor. We have the Prairie Trace Meadows and Estates continuing to plat and build on the east side of town. We have the hotel that will be under construction. And then down farther at the Gardner Road interchange, we have restaurants, we have the school, and we have some additional residential. The 2 blue areas are some city projects related to roads, and I thought I'd give you a brief update on those. The one on the top, north side, if you will, is 167th, and we are in the, Public Works is in the design phase for a segment from Moonlight to Center that will be widened, curb and gutter, more of your urban cross-section. There will be 2 other sections. The second one, and I'm not sure this is the correct order, but they may jump over to Waverly Road and Four Corners because of all the residential development, and then come back and do the segment between Center and Waverly, or they might just keep tracking westward. The other project, 175th, I got a very detailed response. That relates, that is in design. Our consultant is starting the property acquisition, and that will be constructed to 4 lanes. At this time, could eventually at full build out be 6 lanes. Hopefully that construction will begin this late summer, early fall, sometime this year. So with that, I just wanted to share that information, and if there's other information you'd like us to provide in the future, let us know. Otherwise, if you've got any questions, I'm happy to take those.
You didn't show Popeyes.
We heard this last week that Popeyes has decided not to move forward. They were concerned about the eventual access to their restaurant because as improvements go, improvements are constructed along Gardner Road, there will be restricted left access, hand turns. So yeah.
And it appears, obviously, that Wendy's is moving forward. I know there was some contention with access in that project as well, but.
We have not heard from them recently, but they did submit building permits for review. I was pretty sure that so the ball's in their court, and hopefully they'll continue to be interested. And we're also continuing to get more interest down on that interchange with other commercial development in the area. So
We had approved a medical office building.
yes, in 2023, or no, it would have been 24, a 15,000 square foot medical office building was approved in that area, and they are in for building permits. So
Okay.
that is moving forward as well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
It's hard to tell what it's for.
Thank you for putting this presentation together. Is this gonna be available for just
We
online or something?
be happy to send it out to people.
I would love to have it.
And we can see how it makes sense to put it online in terms of the information.
Right.
Jesse's working on a development report that has a lot of this same information, so thank you for putting a lot of that together.
That'll be in the mayor's state of the city.
There will be some of that in the state of the city in April, and that's one of the things that we're working on is an annual report to show development. So you'll start seeing that more frequently. The first time around takes a little longer to put it together, but that's what we're working on as well. We did not have a meeting in February, so there was nothing to report from City Council. We will have an April meeting because we do have some applications. And the amendments to chapters 1 through 3 were approved and they are in force. So we did not have to send out notices moving forward. We did for this meeting, but moving forward we will not. And the last thing I wanted to make you aware of is as development activity is picked up, staff's been working to formalize some of our procedures, not only to improve efficiency, but also ensure that we're completing thorough reviews. And one of the things that we are pushing back on with applicants is the submission of their preliminary and their final and their plats and everything all together, because we've been concerned about if you've got something that goes to the city council, we're having to put up contingencies on that final plat that we're approving at the same time, for example, and we're concerned that we haven't caught some things that we've had to then go back and correct. So you probably won't be seeing preliminary plats and final plats, for example, coming through at the same time like you didn't tonight with Aspen Place. We have looked at and will be trying to compress that review cycle for finals. What that means from the staff side is instead of having 2 rounds of review, we will have 1. And it'll all be contingent on there not being changes from either you all or from the governing body, and that the application is well put together to begin with. So really there's only 1 week time difference in that change for the applicant. So you'll start seeing more of these final plats on the consent agenda, and we may even have shorter meetings. So that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as we move to adjourn, if there's no other business, may I get a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Byrd, second by Commissioner Lucci. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes and meeting is adjourned.